higher up, like you don't see the impact of your decisions right away.
Yeah.
But like PMs are like classically kind of like in the middle. They get handed decisions in terms of like policy or software or process or billing rates or service offerings. And like the culture is to just play ball, right? Play
Mhm.
ball and be a champion for the changes to their
Yeah.
teams. I did not make the decision. I need to sort of implement the decision, right?
Yeah.
I need to get my teams on board with this. And those decisions were not easy to make, at the
Mhm.
leadership level, it's not. At the operator level, they're not easy decisions. But also on the flip side, I guess I would say, like, as an operator, as a leader in an agency, like, we need to take the time to listen as well.
Hi, all. Welcome back to the podcast. Ops leaders, question for you to think about. How do the decisions that you make or your blind spots impact your delivery team? I mean, most of us didn't start our careers as operations directors. We made our way up through the ranks, wore multiple hats, maybe even did stints as project managers. So we felt the pains, and I'm sure had frustrations with the agencies we've worked at, being on the receiving end of messy processes, unclear ownership, tool sprawl, poor onboarding, all of it. But now we're the decision makers. And while we're trying to do our best, we might now have our own blinders on. Today, we're going to help you take those off. And it's a special episode, our first ever podcast exchange. Part one here on the handbook, and part two over on the DPM podcast. Two perspectives, same goal, building agency environments where delivery teams can actually thrive. So, for today's episode, I wanted to bring on someone who lives and breathes the project manager and delivery experience, someone who can speak to the real impact of operational decisions from the other side of the table. That person is Galen Low, co founder of the Digital Project Manager, a global community and learning platform that's helped thousands of digital PMs level up their skills, lead smoother projects, and survive the chaos of agency life. He's also the host of the DPM podcast, where he interviews practitioners from across the digital delivery world. I'm really excited about this conversation. Let's get into it. Galen, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show.
We're going to start, of course, with talking about the fact that we both grew up in Vancouver, didn't we? We worked on the same street in
I think
Gastown or
so.
something
Yeah,
like
in
that.
Gastown. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very, very funny. Of course, I live in London in the UK, so I get very excited when I talk to a fellow Canadian. I'm like, yes.
I'm
Yeah.
excited, man.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you very much. So, Galen, in a past life, I don't get to talk about this very much on this podcast, being focused on operations, but I used to be a digital producer. And then I moved into the role of digital director. So I've been in that delivery seat, dealt with my share of challenges, both internal challenges, operational challenges, as well as clients from hell and all that kind of stuff. But let's see what you're hearing on the ground today. Like, what are some of the things that PMs are struggling with right now that aren't just about projects, and maybe point to deeper issues with the way the agency runs? So I'm hoping what we can get out of this today is for all the operations leaders listening, giving them some kind of clues and hints as to what their teams might be feeling so that they're sensitive to that.
Yeah, great question. I have to say, from my community, here's the three things I'm hearing back from them. One, a lot of their teams are experiencing layoffs.
Mm.
So, they've survived layoffs, but their team makeup has changed and morale's a bit low. The economy is tough. I get it, right? Agencies are having to make really tough decisions right now. There's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
They're trying to do more with less. And on the delivery side of things, those project managers are trying to maintain the quality, the standards, the relationships they hold internally and externally. But really, the team is hurting, actually. They're trying to put on a brave face, but there's a lot of teams out there right now that are trying to do more with less,
Yeah.
feeling the pressure and wondering if this is permanent or wondering if this is temporary. And if temporary, how long is it going to last? So that's something in everyone's brain. I
Mhm.
think in tandem with that, we're seeing a little more role blending and like role expansion. So in other words, I have some project managers who are being asked to upskill on digital strategy or upskill on business requirements gathering or upskill on marketing a little bit. And in some ways, I think it's this natural blend, but also I think there's a lot of pressure on these teams, right?
Mhm.
It's not like these big jobs, these big contracts aren't flowing through. A lot of the retainers aren't being renewed. So there's little projects. And then it doesn't look like they can fill 40 hours a week doing projects. I mean, they probably could, but the idea is, okay, well, maybe you can do a bit more. So I've been seeing that a little bit. It's good and bad, right? And on the
Yeah.
one hand, there's a lot of opportunity. I creeped your professional journey, and I was like, there could be good things that come from role blending and role
Hmm.
expansion. That could be your next promotion eventually. But right now, I think people are like, again, is this permanent or is this temporary? If it's temporary, how long is it going to last?
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'd say is just, the teams, especially project managers, we're being asked to take a position on AI as sort of process and team leads. We are not always getting clear answers from the top because every organization, every agency is trying to figure it out. What is our governance policy? What are our, how are
Yeah.
we approaching AI tools? On the delivery side, it's almost like, why aren't you using AI? And in some cases, every team member is using their own AI tool to do a thing. And it's hard to be that person who says, okay, well, yes, let's start baking this into our process. And I need to make time to learn how to do this, but also let me get approval from top brass, from the leadership team to make sure I'm doing the right thing. Meanwhile, everyone's just doing everything. And you're like, is client data going into these tools? I need to draw some lines right now. And then
Hmm.
on the other side of things, there's a lot of project managers who are like, my style is very human,
Yeah.
and I don't really want to adopt AI. I don't want to be that person that says AI is good because I'm not sure yet. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that puts me out of a job, and I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Again, there's a lot of uncertainty right now.
Hmm. Really, really interesting points there, Galen. I feel like each of those could turn into an episode in themselves, but I just wanted to reflect back on a couple of things. The first thing is you brought up the idea of layoffs, and the morale impact is such a serious thing, right? From the business point of view, it's a tough decision that often needs to be had. Otherwise, you wouldn't go through with it, right? But the impact it has on your remaining team is so serious. So that's really something you have to consider. And there's no easy fix to that, I don't think. It's just about reassuring the people that are there and making sure you're doing the things that you need to rebuild that kind of sense of trust, and making it clear that you're doing the things that you need to be doing to make sure that business is coming in and there's a sustainable amount of work, right? So that's one thing. The role blending thing is interesting. I think if there's, in my point of view, if it's like very closely related to your core skill set, then I think that's a great thing. You're learning and expanding your immediate skills. I think I have an issue with role blending when it's coming from the opposite end, where you're just simply not hiring the roles that you need.
Hmm.
And therefore, everyone has two different jobs. They're like part time social media manager and part time whatever. And
Hmm.
so it's like this juggling of responsibilities that really shouldn't be in your kind of wheelhouse. I think that becomes very, very stressful.
Hmm.
So one thing I've experienced, and I kind of alluding to it there, is that the people closest to the work usually know something's broken in an organization before leadership does. I've been in that situation before. I'm sure you have as well. But yeah, thoughts on that, and what are some clues that teams tend to pick up on that things are a bit busted?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. Honestly, I've been in both seats. So I've been on the ground just seeing things happen right in front of me. And that's a benefit, right? You see it creating chaos and you see it hurt people in some cases, or at least create confusion.
Hmm.
Higher up, you don't see the impact of your decisions right away.
Yeah.
But PMs are classically kind of in the middle. They get handed decisions in terms of policy or software or process or billing rates or service offerings. And the culture is to just play ball, right? Play ball
Hmm.
and be a champion for the changes to their
Yeah.
teams. I have this note here. I'm like, grin and bear it
Yeah.
should be tattooed on every agency PM's forehead because that's the mission, right? You're like,
Yeah.
okay, I did not make the decision. I need to sort of implement the decision, right?
Yeah.
I need to get my teams on board with this. And what you want to be able to do as a PM, right, is champion both ways, right? We're stuck in the middle. We're like, okay, if things aren't working, right?
Mm.
If we start noticing a dip in efficiency or confusion or dips in morale with our team, the best thing we can do actually is probably to be
Yeah.
vocal, but solutions oriented, because
Yeah.
it's easy to point at a hole, right? And those decisions were not easy to make, at the
Mhm.
leadership level, it's not. At the operator level, they're not easy decisions. But also on the flip side, I guess I would say as an operator, as a leader in an agency, we need to take the time to listen as well.
Mhm.
It's not easy to hear about problems from
Yeah.
that thing that you've been planning for months or that thing that's really integral to your business and your business strategy. But take it as feedback. That is all feedback from your decisions being battle tested in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a huge proponent of the fact that like getting data, like real data coming back to you after making a decision or after rolling something out, it's way better than not hearing about it. You asked me some sort of symptoms. I do think if people aren't coming to you, but your like gut is telling you that something's just not quite right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if you've built the culture of trust and you can sit down with project managers or team leads one on one just to be like, hey, listen, like, let's grab a coffee, talk to me about this thing. Like, is it going well? I think there is definitely agency culture where we're just supposed to grin and bear it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want feedback on it, or if you sense that it might not be doing the thing that you want it to do, I'm sure there's a lot of people on the ground who will want to tell you in the right context,
Yeah.
not in a town hall, not in a team meeting, not in any kind of pressurized environment in a room full of the leadership team. But yeah, get grassroots and try and get a sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, us PMs, we're noticing things like morale, efficiency, confusion. Those are all the things that feed into chaos. Those are all the
Mm-hmm.
things that slow down what we're normally used to doing. Those are the things that are delaying whatever, getting to that payment milestone or completing that project that opens up the team to that next thing, the next project. So it's a really important flow.
And I think what you brought up there about listening to the PMs, I think that's such great feedback for like the operators and agency leaders. These are some of your most process oriented, organized people in your business. So if you really want valid feedback on the way you've set up processes or the way things are just creaking and stuff like that, these are people that are going to tell you exactly what's wrong and tell you after they've tested all that stuff. So I think that's really, really important. The whole thing about being the heroic project manager, I've had to be one of those. When you're in an organization that's not very structured or not very mature, for someone that has that project manager or operations mindset, your nature is to create structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've had to do that where it's just like the rest of the organization is just operating in this kind of very loose way. And it's like, well, in our team, this is the way we're going to do it. And this is the way it needs to happen. So I think that's great. But on the other hand, it's not an ideal place for an organization where people are having to pick up the slack due to the lack of kind of structure coming down from the top. I was wondering if you have any other examples where you've seen teams just making things work because the foundations weren't really there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like that word, heroic project managers.
Yeah.
It's funny because in my community, mostly we're digital project managers. We're working in digital agencies, building
Hmm.
digital solutions like websites or marketing campaigns and what have you. And we champion this culture of speaking up and having hard conversations, right? Running towards tough conversations to make things better.
Yeah.
But also in an agency situation, there's a lot of pressure on project managers, but also on the teams, right? There's just pressure to deliver. So I have had teams that are putting in 70, 80-hour weeks, like secretly, like not telling anybody.
Wow.
Because they want to make it look like the parameters of an
Yeah.
agency, right? It's like they want to look like they're hitting their utilization targets. They want to look like they're matching the sort of resourcing or capacity expectations. But they're trying to sometimes punch above their weight class. Sometimes everybody is trying to punch above their weight class, thinking that somebody else in the agency is getting it done faster, is getting it done better, is able to take on more projects at once. And so there's that competitiveness. So sometimes we're just smoothing it over by the fact, like as individuals, not a team culture. It's not like a
Yeah.
team that says, hey, listen, let's just put in extra time. Overtime is our game. That's our culture. Like, let's go. I
Hmm.
think it's just that individuals sometimes are secretly getting work done, which, as you can imagine, as an operator, that's the worst thing that could happen because
Mm.
then all of your baseline, all of your benchmark of what is expected, it stays the same. And you're like, I guess everything's great,
Mm.
but everyone's gaming the system
Yeah.
beneath because they're like, well, that's how I look good. That's how I get promoted. That's how, there's all these things that are more politically charged. So I've had devs individually just coding over the weekend just to keep up because their resourcing was not realistic. I've had project managers, they do all their heads down work. I don't know if you were like this, but like sometimes the frenzy of the job is like, okay, you're expected to be like on and available on whatever Teams or Slack, like all the time during the day.
Mm.
Which means if you had to do a proposal or a change request or your status reports, that's all happening in the evening, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I'll just stack that later. I can't even get in gear to do this work during the day because I'm answering questions, I'm
Hmm.
talking to clients um, and then the sort of example I have is sometimes I've seen a lot of agencies. They're like, yeah, we are our thing is agile. Like we are all Scrum all the time. That's what we do. That's how we stay competitive. We're fast. We're nimble. We're collaborative.
Hmm.
Um, And like, okay, so it's like every project needs to be, this is the way we work. This is the one way we work. It's how we
Yeah.
sell it to our clients. And then the clients are like, yeah, we're not really set up for agile. So then
Mm,
we have this like internal agile thing going on that
mm.
then gets like distilled back up to the client as just like regular, more predictive,
Yeah.
more waterfall style projects because they're not set up for it. So effectively the teams are doing both. They're like doing all the, it's like our policy is to like, yeah, do Scrum. We do all of our sprint planning and we have daily stand-ups and we do our sprint reviews with the client. But really it's kind of like just like delivering based on a milestone for this client that fundamentally cannot make a decision in that meeting. And then
Hmm.
it's going to end up with 3 weeks of something getting approved because
Yeah.
they're not set up to be nimble. They're not set up to be agile. And so you have like both gears. We're like trying to toe the line, trying to deliver the brand experience.
Hmm.
And like I've had project managers on my teams who've been like, hey, listen, like this is not an agile project. Permission to just switch it, and we'll make that decision together because yeah, it's probably a good selling point for some agencies to say, yeah, listen, this is the way we work, but it's not realistic if the client is not set up that way.
Absolutely.
So, those are some of those like insidious things where you think everything's working. It looks like it's working on the surface. And you're like, this is
Mm.
great. Metrics are good, right? Utilization is good. Resourcing is good. But sometimes it's all happening without you knowing
Yeah.
how or where there is exceptions being made. People not quite gaming the system, but kind of like for
Or
their own
feel
survival.
pressured. Exactly.
Exactly.
What I love about this role of project manager and ops is I find a lot of parallels. Your responsibilities might be different. One is project oriented and one is organization oriented.
Mhm.
But like that, the kind of incoming barrage of support and answering things and like you're just constantly facing it, right? So like you're saying, a lot of the kind of this stuff that you really need to focus on in the planning can end up getting shoved aside because your work hours end up being like very reactive. So
Mhm.
you have to have a lot of kind of control in place to make sure that's not happening. But some of the stuff that you were saying about kind of people gaming the system and stuff like that, there's multiple things happening, right? Like you're saying, agencies are under pressure, so there are layoffs happening, and then people don't always know when to speak up. I
Mhm.
remember when I was one of my roles in Vancouver, I was quite young and early in my career, and it was like a boutique agency of four individuals, four of us. So I just
Wow.
thought like I need to deliver. Like, we've got projects all over the world. I'm the project manager. I'm the only project manager. So the fact that I have to call people in Poland and Japan and like Shanghai, like,
Mhm.
okay, that's in the middle of the night. So I just need to make it happen. And I was like literally killing myself for this role. And it felt like something we needed to do. But my bosses, they acted shocked when they found out, first of all. But I think there's just something there that you have to be careful of and keep an eye on your team, even if they're not speaking up. There's a bit of the imposter thing can come up, feeling
Mhm.
like you really need to prove yourself, and also maybe not recognizing that this is an organizational issue. And if you need the resource, you need the resource, and people need to know.
Yeah. No, that's huge. I love that. Like trying to determine which is it me or is it the organization? Is it a
Hmm.
bit of both? I think on both sides, I think it's a really important lens to put on it because yeah, that imposter syndrome and the time
Yeah.
zone thing you mentioned, yeah, I've been there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is real. You're like kind of like holding up the roof with like nothing else. And you're like,
Yeah.
I guess this is the job. And you're like, but it feels really, really hard. And like, I wish I could raise my hand without shooting myself in the foot.
Hmm.
And it's one of those je ne sais quoi things, but like it's the culture, right? Like I've worked in agencies where like, yeah, you raise your hand, you get it shot off, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like great. You're not 80, 90% utilized, like, and you're raising your hand saying there's problems. I think it's the problem is you. Like
Mm.
called out, shamed, like in public, in front of the agency,
Yeah.
building a reputation of somebody who's just always a squeaky wheel, right? Like there is such thing as culture that will never let you see how your business is operating
Hmm.
because people are shooting down the people who are raising their hands. And again, for me, it's data, right? Like, listen, gather the data. You don't have to act on all of it. Not all of it's going to be like true for everybody or something that you need to take action on. But if you don't know what's happening, and we're not talking to some of these individuals, that's the only way to find out. You don't see it on the surface, you don't
Hmm.
see it in the data. You have to go and get that like qualitative data from folks.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about tooling in a moment. There was something that you said there about utilization that kind of struck a chord, and a question like that came up. And I don't know if I ever had a great answer to this. Is that when setting utilization targets for project manager roles, there was always kind of a disparity between expectations and the reality. And I think the reason was project managers or producers, they end up jumping across so much stuff all
Hmm.
day that it becomes, first of all, very challenging to track your time accurately, right? Because it's just
Hmm.
like you're answering like 10 different Slack messages every 10 minutes. So it's like, well, what do I log that on? You're guessing. But also I think some of the producers that have worked for me is like they don't feel there's this kind of guilt associated with logging time on a
Hmm.
task when you're only sporadically doing certain things or you're answering like a single message. I don't even know what my question is, Galen, there, but it's just like, have you come across that before? I guess. And is there any kind of brilliant advice you have in how to manage that? Because
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of time that ends up getting logged on kind of admin because people don't know what to log that on.
Yeah. Honestly, I see it a lot. And for me, it boils down to this. It's like, and this is not just for project managers. This is anyone,
Yeah.
specifically agency. It's like, do you understand the value of the work that you're doing? Not
Right.
how many minutes you spent doing the thing, but the value, right? So like, it might take me 15 minutes to just tap, 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 put together a status report, put
Yeah.
my notes together, send it off to a client. Does that mean it's not valuable? No, actually, they're paying us to know how their project is going, to know that it's going smoothly, for someone to be doing the risk management, to say, hey, listen, like just heads up, like that thing that you're supposed to approve, like that deadline's coming up on Thursday. Oh,
Hmm.
by the way, we're ahead of schedule on this, but like there's a big chunk. We're getting into like the meaty middle of the project, right? Like that is valuable.
Hmm.
It's not 15 minutes worth of value. And I think
Yeah.
the thing is like I was never taught how to think about tracking my time. I was
Right.
just told you work this many hours per week, and of those hours, like X% should be billable.
Mm.
So when you track your time, try and make that happen. And then so I'd be like, okay, well, like I guess I should like make it add up. So I guess I'll like do more work now actually to like make it balance so that the time that I've put in equals the like billable sort of thing that I'm doing. And as I got further in my career, and I don't know if every operator is going to agree with this,
Mhm.
but eventually it was like, okay, like what was the value that I did for this project? I don't need to count every email that I
Mm.
sent. What did I do? How much, like, what percentage of my day did I spend delivering value for this project as a
Yeah.
project manager? So first I had to understand what my value was there. Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, keeping things on the rails, but like not just herding cats. It's like communication, it's orchestration, it's translation, it's making sure that things happen so that we can bill, so that we can get paid, like so that the client can like continue their digital transformation or launch that campaign. Like they're going to make money too. The ROI on what we do, project managers or anyone else in an agency, it's a thing. Like it's
Yeah.
not just how fast you can type if you're a developer, right? And it's like, and frankly, utilization is a terrible measure of if you are fast at coding, or if you're
Mhm.
fast at doing status reports, or if you're fast at wireframing. You have no incentive to get it done quicker because then your utilization drops. So you're like, oh, great. But then I realized, okay, if there was a way for
Mm.
for agencies specifically, especially if you're like time and materials, right? Like to have some kind of parameters or training around time tracking. Not like, oh, bill what you want, bill what you think you're worth. I think that's probably not,
Yeah.
sustainable, feasible, viable.
Mm.
But maybe even just some guidelines, right? It's like, it's not the 15 minutes that most agencies care about. It's about, are you servicing this client in a meaningful way? And yeah, like yeah, I don't want you to put like 200 time entries in for
Mhm.
like 4 days of work,
Yeah.
all in quarter-hour increments. Like I don't necessarily want that. I haven't seen an agency yet that like goes, great, let's like gather all the time that people send spending emails, like those quarter-hour things that are described as email, and
Mhm.
let's like create a dashboard about like
Yeah.
how long we spent on. And I've never seen an agency do that. They don't care. They care about the bigger service offerings, the bigger strokes. How
Yeah.
how how much does it take us to deliver a website on this CMS versus that CMS? Like,
Mm.
and I think there's this like limited understanding of what is done with time tracking data and what is
Mhm.
done with utilization. And I think there's this disconnect between how a business operates, how an agency operates in particular, and like what people see as overwatch. They're like,
Yeah.
you just want to make sure I'm doing work, which is not always true. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
true, but it's not always true. Sometimes it's about, broader business data. Sometimes it's about productization. Sometimes it's about efficiency gains after a process was rolled out. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot to it, and we don't tell anybody. We just say
Mhm.
track your time. Go for
Yeah.
it. Here's a tool. Track your time. See you later.
Well, if you want compliance, I think it's super important for people to understand what that is serving and what purpose, what they're contributing to by tracking that. So we're going to continue on tooling. I guess it's just my question is, what does it look like from a team side when the tool setup is making the delivery team's job harder? Does anything come to mind so that we can catch these red flags?
It's a tough one. Okay. This is like when a tool changes, you're talking change management,
Yeah.
no matter what tool it is. And fundamentally, it is this sort of balance between like the cognitive load of like navigating a new tool that maybe you got like an hour's training with versus like the muscle memory, right? Like, so this is a bit adjacent, but like we had clients in the airline business, right? And they use a tool, I believe it's called Sabre. Don't quote me on that, but it's like, it's basically DOS for booking agents, right? You type into a command line.
Okay.
And they've gotten so fast at that. They're like, you change that tool, I quit in mass. They
Okay.
would revolt against it because they're so efficient with that tool. Now, we don't always get that choice at an agency. I've been at more than 2 or half a dozen agencies where we flipped a tool overnight and it wasn't
Right.
always communicated why, and
Mm.
we weren't trained on it. Like we flipped from whatever we were using a project management tool, and then overnight we flipped to Basecamp, and I was like, cool, figure it out. Guess what? As I'm figuring it out, like I'm not sitting down with my tea like at midnight figuring out Basecamp. I need a real use case to actually like plug into.
Yeah.
B, we're just getting work done, right? So like we are immediately less efficient because there's always questions come up. They're like, hey, how should I do this thing? And
Yeah.
there might be an answer, but I think when you start hearing that there's these questions, right? Like it's not just people necessarily figuring it out. It might just be that it could have been more efficient maybe
Hmm.
to outline some of these scenarios and take that data back because you can apply that to any tool rollout. But, it doesn't always look like things are on fire. Everyone's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, that's great. We rolled out, new time tracking tool. Everyone's using it. Like, excellent, job done. But, thinking about like just the cognitive load that the team is undergoing to like learn it, to figure it out,
Hmm.
even just the UI, right? Even like, what does this button do? This icon,
Yeah.
right? You're talking about like fragments of seconds, but it's adding up. And I think there's a certain way to do it, right? I don't claim to know exactly how it can work well for all agencies, but there's something in between the memos. It's like, hey, it's January 1st. By the way, in like in Q2, we're going to change your time tracking tool. Oh, hey, it's the end of Q1. Like, we're going to change your time tracking tool. Hey, we're going to change your time tracking tool. It's like the message is the same all the way through. And then suddenly the new time tracking tool, because like how you experience that change is, okay, something's coming. Something's
Yeah.
coming. Something's coming. Oh, it's here. And then
That,
you're
yeah.
like,
Now,
it didn't prepare anybody. Nobody was like
no.
doing anything about it. No one was getting trained, etc. Is that versus just flipping the switch overnight? Like, not good either. I think people just need to understand and feel comfortable with how they're going to do their job in a new tool. That comfort level alone will make their learning process faster because they
Hmm.
feel supported. They feel like they don't have to do it under pressure. They're not like I've been sweating bullets trying to like get a thing out in a new tool, and I'm like, oh gosh, okay, I just need to smash through this. It's very stressful. I'm just going to click every button and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But
Yeah.
like, I need to deliver this thing. Like, that's not a great experience for anyone on your team. And it's probably it's being disruptive to your business.
Absolutely. I think that's so valid. I think it's a sign of a mature business to have a systematic approach to rolling something out and having a point of view about how things are done. Not to say that things shouldn't be flexible, they absolutely should, but just throwing something at a team, like you're saying, the stress and kind of disruption and chaos that causes is not worth it. And if you want your change to fail, that is exactly how you should do it. So you've invested loads of money on this tool, and now you want no one to be happy with it and using it, and make that process as difficult as possible for them and for yourself. That's how you should do it. Otherwise, be more measured, make a planned approach to rolling it out, keep people in the loop.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're
Mhm.
right. Like, not everything's going to be figured out right away.
Mm.
But I do think that, yeah, having some parameters of how things are being used. I've totally seen that. We've adopted a tool. Everyone like went on YouTube to like figure out how to use it. So
Yeah.
everyone was doing something different because they were just watching a different video or it wasn't tailored to the way that organization was working. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a quick way to make a muddy mess.
Yeah, exactly. So let's switch gears a little bit. I wanted to talk about kind of freelancers and flexible teams and the way people kind of scale up by bringing in extra support. But of course, that only works well when people are onboarded well and you've got those processes down. Can you give us any advice when you've got kind of project managers coming in, freelancers and whatnot, how you can make sure that this is flawless in terms of that kind of experience and that handoff?
Yeah, I love that question because we're seeing a lot more freelance positions or roles or opportunities open up, a lot more professionals in the agency world going freelance. Here's the thing about freelance: a good freelancer, in my opinion, knows they have to hit the ground running,
Yeah.
knows how to get themselves up to speed, doesn't really want to get onboarded like an employee. Like, they
Hmm.
don't want it. They're like, tell me how you do things, where things are at, who my team is, and make this information available to me. And I see some, I don't know if they're mistakes, but I've seen some agencies where they kind of like, they're like, cool, like we're going to like eat 2 days of their time, the cost of that time to sit them down with like team leads and like get them up to speed with where things are at. And it'll be very human, which is great. It's very noble, but it's not always the best way. First of all, people are, agency land, right? They're never available at the same time. To your point, different time zones, right? It's
Yeah.
like what it's gonna be like someone in Poland's gonna like be sitting there in their evening to like onboard a freelance PM or otherwise that stateside. Like that's gonna create friction in and of itself. It might be a nice idea, but I would say that like invest time in some really good, really punchy, lightweight, not even documentation. So like
Yeah.
for example, like we love a good scavenger hunt checklist. It's kind of like we call it like a two-way onboarding checklist. It's kind of like, cool, that person who's like responsible for what you're doing has some tasks and you have some tasks as well.
Mm.
Go to this drive, read this document, go here. Here's how you're going to get yourself up to speed. Tick it off when you're done.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this self-serve. Like we were organized enough to be like, cool, here are the documents that you probably need to read. Here's the priority. And then other than that, if you have access, then get in there and you have the stuff to refer to because
Hmm.
it's not all going to make sense on day one, right? You're
Yeah.
going to be like, cool, who's the client? What's the industry? And then when you go back and read that other thing, you're like, okay, that makes sense now. But it's
Yeah.
like access to the right documentation. I think like the other thing I've seen some agencies do is just kind of like this team working agreement. It's like not super robust, but it's like, listen, as a team, because agency is like, we're just like, and projects in general, there's not always people who work together all the time. It's like, great, we're smashing a bunch of people together. There's no formal reporting structure other than the fact that we're on a project team together. Here's the way we work. Here's when each other are available. Here's like a bit of our working style from each individual, our values as a team, the process that we kind of use. Like, oh yeah, there's this weekly thing, like a meeting that we do, right? Like that's a great document for onboarding a freelancer because you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I understand how this team works. I understand what they're used to. I'm not going to commit it to memory right now, but I get it. I get the idea, and I'm going to keep revisiting it and revisiting it. I'm going to use it to have conversations with the team to be like, hey, like it says here that you like to receive feedback right away, even if it's brutal. Like, is that okay? Right? Like, because I can do that.
Yeah.
And so it's like a certain level of documentation. I think when people hear the word documentation, they think like there might be a manual, that's
Mm.
as thick as a phone book.
Yeah.
That's the worst. Actually, nobody reads that.
Hmm.
But good asynchronous systems. There's some teams that are very remote first, and basically they don't have any private Slack messages, right? No DMs, all
Okay.
public. Because that's where information transfer happens. And if you had to look back at it, it would be there. You don't have to be
Yeah.
like, hey, oh yeah, I had this side conversation with so and so. So none of that information is available. But let me just tell you, there's like this sort of information, this like inaccessible information, right?
Yeah.
And then to the point where they're also using AI note takers and meeting minutes always get posted. So again, that time zone thing too, right? Sometimes people can join, they're in Europe the day, or maybe they're ahead of it, but they still have to catch up on the end of the day stateside. They're like, oh, great. Okay, there was 3 meetings. I can see the conversation here. I can get myself up to speed quickly. Again, not committing it to memory, but like, okay, I understand what happened. And if I need to go back to it, it's there. Like,
Hmm.
those are good systems for freelancers because freelancers, again, coming back to my original point, for me, a good freelancer knows they have to hit the ground running fast
Yeah.
and knows how to get themselves up to speed. They don't necessarily want to sit down and get talked at for like 7 hours. They just like give me the mission briefing and access to the right stuff and let me cook.
Absolutely. And they're expensive as well. So you want to
Exactly,
get
right?
them working as quickly as possible. I like the idea that you brought up of just kind of self-directed resources, first of all, so they're not relying on other people. But for me, it was like new starters, they tended to have like a 1 week onboarding.
Right?
Freelancers, on the other hand, had something like 2 to 4 hours,
Yeah.
really. And it was three things. First was like, this is Slack. Of course, you've used Slack before, but this is what our project channels look like. This is what our pitch channels look like. And then number two was how we use our file management platform. It was Dropbox for
Right.
Business. So this is how stuff is structured, and this is where you can find it. And number three was we used Scoro. So it was like, this is where you track your time and how to do that, and this is how to check your schedule. So that those were the key things. It was like after that you're ready to be briefed on a project,
Those are
right?
great pillars.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, right? Be able to talk to people, be able to access documents, know how to sort of track your time and get paid.
absolutely, absolutely. And you want to know as quickly as possible if the freelancer is not going to be a right fit as well. So the worst thing you can
Right.
do is spend half a week onboarding them, and then it's like, oh man, they're not creative enough or they're not getting it right. So that
Yeah.
is the absolute worst. Cool. We've been talking a lot about what makes life hard for PMs, but I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you about what makes things smooth. So, what are the little signs that the delivery environment is actually well supported? So, that might be resources that the management or the ops leaders have put in place to help things work well. So, those could be onboarding processes, structured methodologies, clear instructions on key platforms and how things are done. But I'll hand that over to you.
I mean, honestly, that's an interesting question. Funny enough, here's my take. Like, when I see sort of maturity in an agency, especially around project management,
Mhm.
there's like this like level of empowerment and trust, knowing that, because like it's funny, like you and I, we've both said it, that like project managers are very process oriented and we're very organized, and that is all true, but there's like this stylistic whatever modus operandi that every project manager has, right?
Yeah.
They don't really want to be shoved into a box. I actually think the worst, at least supportive cultures are like, don't stray from anything. Because project managers are, we're also creative. We
Yeah.
have our own style. A lot of us are very human oriented, right? In other words, we bring personality into the role. It's not all the rules that the computer says. So actually, I want enough structure, right? I want
Mhm.
enough structure and enough trust and like, you tell me as a project manager what those things are where I will get fried, right? If it's like, yeah, listen, like if you're sequestering team resources that are supposed to go to another project, but your project's delayed, yeah, you're gonna get fried. Great, got it. Like I know, like now let me cook. Like I know what to do. I
Yeah.
know where to go. If it's like, yeah, listen, we have a pretty decent margin and like contingency here, but this client, like, yeah, if you get on the wrong side and like you jeopardize this relationship, you're fried. And I'm like, great, I know what to do now. But like, you don't need to micromanage me. Just tell me that you're going to be frank with me, that you're going to tell me the truth, no matter how raw or how hard it's going to sound.
Yeah.
But that you trust me. And like, I've seen this sort of like balance between like accountability and Overwatch, really. Again, I'll bring that term up. Someone I respect greatly. Like, she is known across her team as like quintessential tough love, the best kind of tough love, right? She's compassionate, she cares, and if you give her an answer that's not satisfactory, she will grill you because she
Okay.
cares. She doesn't want your project to be like, I think this is going to happen. Maybe the client's going to approve this thing. Like that ambiguity, she's going to slice through it. She's like, ambiguity is risk, right? If there's something that you can go and find the answer to and get clarity on, go do that. Then talk to me, right? Like, I think that's a really good sort of model rather than say, did you follow this 5-step checklist? Because if you didn't, then you're probably not doing your job. Like, I think that contains what a project manager is able to do. Like, I get that a business might want to scale. You don't want everyone doing everything their own way, but I don't think scale needs to mean like cookie cutter templated
Super
business.
rigid.
Yeah, it needs to be like
Exactly.
manageable at scale.
Yeah.
But like, I think the power of the role in a lot of agency roles, to be honest with you, is this sort of stylistic, personality driven behavior that yields results.
Mm.
And you look across your organization, you know who they are, right? You know there's that one person that everyone kind of likes but also is scared of.
Mhm.
Yeah, like that person. Great. Like they are making things happen and no handbook is going to
Mm.
tell you, no pun intended, but no manual is going
Yeah.
to like recreate that person. If you were like
Mm.
copied down everything that person did in a day and then told someone else to do it, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's okay. That's business. We're humans for now. We're organizations built from humans
Yeah.
doing human stuff together. Right?
Absolutely. real life is messy and client
Hmm.
requirements and needs and demands are messy as well. So I
Yeah.
think the flexibility to make smart decisions is absolutely, absolutely key. Really, really
Yeah.
good examples. So if someone in an ops or leadership role is listening to this and they want to better support their delivery teams, does anything come to mind?
Okay. So I'm coming back to something I said earlier, right?
Hmm.
Understanding your value as a project manager, I think also is true from the other side, is that organizations, like, I get it, right? Like I've seen small agencies grow up a lot of the time, owner operator, entrepreneur style, got the business going, right? Was the
Hmm.
salesperson, was the delivery person, was the ops person, was the finance person,
Yeah.
and then scaled. And then that decision point is a really tough one. Like, can I afford a full time employee? Who's my first hire going to be? And you get to the project manager and you're like, I guess I have to. I hear this a lot from operators. They're like, yeah, I just kind of, I need someone now to like make sure everything happens and like keep things on time and on schedule. And, like, I don't know. I don't want to pay too much for this person. I see these roles, they're like mid six figures and I can't afford that, but I need more than like a virtual assistant somewhere in the middle. And like, like, and I guess we'll just make them do the thing and like, it's fine. And then tick the box. Whereas, I don't know, I find a lot of the time that like undercuts the value of A, the value you're going to get from that project manager, B, your understanding of the value of the role. Because in a lot of cases, folks like yourself, you've come up and you're like, okay, yeah, I've been the delivery person sometimes.
Hmm.
And I didn't just check a box and make sure things get done. I was strategic. I was like
Yeah.
managing client relationships. I was being like, I understood the politics, I was able to motivate my team. And I think just appreciating that and taking a step back and understanding that like everyone gets trained to be like, oh, projects that like are delivered on time, on budget, without any extra scope, like that is success. Like not always. And again, like if you have a process that, is reliable, that's not the only thing driving that success. I would say the best thing that an agency leadership team or an ops team could do to better support the delivery teams and specifically their project managers is I think just like understanding that like, yeah, there's little everyday decisions that are making a huge impact to culture. They're making a huge impact to efficiency. They're making a huge impact to like having recurring client work, right? Renewing that retainer, the profitability aspect of things. It's not
Yeah.
all these big swaths. It's not all the process. There's like these tiny things, like hundreds of things, thousands of things every day that these individuals are doing because they know what the goal is,
Yeah.
right? And I think really like understanding that and frankly, just like making time to like listen and talk to them a little bit. I think I find that some folks are resistant in agency culture to talk to the project managers because they either feel like they're going to get an earful or a spreadsheet or something. And they're like, I don't want that. Or they're going to like hear all the like bad news and
Yeah.
then they're going to feel overwhelmed. Both are probably true. But also, like, what is that sort of like interaction? What is the right fidelity of interaction to be like, how are things going? How can I support you better? Or what challenges are you facing right now? Not even the support thing, because honestly, project managers, we're not good at raising our hands to ask for help.
Mhm.
But if you get them to describe some of the challenges, you're going to get line of sight into what's going on the front lines and what they're doing every day to navigate that. And coming back to your earlier question, sometimes they're like building a bridge out of sticks because there was a chasm that nobody knew was there and nobody talked about. And that's how you're going to find those things out. That's how you're going to understand the value of your project management team. Also, that's how you're going to understand where you need to improve your business so that those gaps have proper, permanent, concrete bridges, not
Mhm.
makeshift things here and there. Honestly, I think it all starts with just like taking the time to listen a little bit, right? Don't invite an earful, you will get it. Uh, but talking to those folks because they're seeing things from a very unique middle ground where they
Yeah.
are above, they're looking at all the work happening across departments, they're understanding client relationships, they're looking at how projects fit together, they're understanding how different projects are delivered differently, even if the product is the same or the service offering is the same. They have a very unique perspective on how things are running. It's worth talking to them. It's worth holding them accountable, but also giving them a little breathing room to do their thing and
Mhm.
trusting that they'll do their thing as long as the right parameters are set.
Mhm. That is a really nice spot to end our conversation on today as well, Galen, because I'm really excited to jump on your podcast. We're recording it
Yeah.
directly after this. Before we do that, I wanted to talk about the digital project manager. So I've been on loads of webinars with yourselves and on your website, but could you tell our audience, just in case they're not familiar with who DPM is and what you guys do?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So the Digital Project Manager, we are a knowledge sharing community helping project people get skilled, get confident, and get connected, mostly so that we can amplify the value of project management in a digital world. We're all about people and pixels and code, right? Those projects that involve websites or digital marketing campaigns, augmented reality, video games. It's easy sometimes with the speed of technology for things to come off the rails and be really chaotic. It takes a certain quality of person to lead those, to lead through complexity, through ambiguity. And so that's what we're all about. Yes, we do monthly webinars that are open to the public, and then we have our membership offering where we're doing a whole bunch of exclusive stuff. We're getting deep into tools, or we're doing peer mentorship. We have expert Ask Me Anythings. We've got a vibrant Slack community. We've got mini courses. And then on the training side, with the DPM school, we've got our certification program, Mastering Digital Project Management. It's like
Amazing.
end-to-end agency PM training. We designed it as our perfect onboarding. So the onboarding we wish we had when we were coming into the agency game as project managers. You can check us out at thedpm.com or find me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to chat.
Amazing. Amazing. So we'll put links to all of that. And the resources, I have to say, it's called the Digital Project Manager, but like ops people, you're going to love this stuff as well. So do go check it out. There's loads of really interesting webinars and stuff like that you'll get a lot of value out of. So Galen, thank you so much for joining. And I'm really excited to join your podcast. So anyone listening, now is the time, go find it and listen to part 2 of this conversation from the operational perspective.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. That's where we'll leave the conversation for now. As you've just heard, Galen's got a front row seat to what's working and what's not in agency delivery teams, and how operational decisions often show up in ways leadership doesn't see right away. If today's episode sparked some thoughts or helped you recognize some blind spots, make sure to check out DPM's website. Like I said, loads of resources there that can help your delivery teams and even your operations team there. The link is in the episode notes, but we're not done yet. Please go listen to part 2 of this conversation where we're flipping the lens. I'll be joining Galen over on the DPM podcast to talk about how agencies can build operational models that actually support delivery, especially in a world of changing team structures, rising expectations, and the pressure to scale without breaking. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with someone that would enjoy it. Join the conversation when you see Galen or I posting about it on LinkedIn. And of course, sign up for the handbook newsletter so you get a cheat sheet with the key takeaways from every episode in your inbox. Go to scoro.com/podcast, scroll down, and you'll find the newsletter sign up form. That's it for me this week. Thanks very much for joining us. This podcast is brought to you by Scoro, a platform designed for agencies and consultancies, which allows you to manage your projects, finances, and resources, all from one system. This is a platform I brought in at a previous workplace, which completely transformed the way we worked, and which I've recommended to clients of my own. You can sign up for a free trial on scoro.com. That's SCORO.com. Or reach out to me, Harv Nagra, on LinkedIn if you'd like to hear about some of my experiences.